Welcome to another episode of Pimp Your Brilliance with Monique Malcolm, a podcast about brilliant people leveraging their passions to create their own opportunities. I aim to show you what's really possible when you shut down the chorus of fear and lean into your genius zone. You can learn more about this show and subscribe for updates by visiting keepchasingthestars.com/podcast or come hang out with me on Instagram at StarChasersOnly. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hey Star Chasers, this is Pimp Your Brilliance episode number 4. You can find the show notes for this episode at keepchasingthestars.com/4. Today's special guest is Tara Jefferson Pringle of the Bloom Beautifully box and the Renaissance Suite. Tara is a writer, speaker, and self-care coach who specializes in helping women cut through the clutter of their lives and plant themselves back at the center. As the founder of the Bloom Beautifully box, a subscription box that delivers self-care to your door, she is determined to start a movement that cancels chaos and creates a peace for women everywhere. This has been one of my favorite interviews so far. Tara shared so much wisdom about self-care and how to love yourself better, how to take better care of yourself. And she also gave really great information about the subscription box model because that is one of her businesses. She runs a subscription box. So if you've been burning the candle on both ends and you're looking for some relief, definitely listen to this episode. So here we go. Hey Tara, welcome to Pimp Your Brilliance podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I am so excited that you said yes because I've heard so many things about you and what you do and just how amazing your community is. So I'm really excited to have you and to be able to kind of pick your brain and see what you have going on in your business. So let's get started with a bit of your background. Tell us who you are, what you do, what's your thing.
Yeah, well, I am the founder of the Bloom Beautifully box. It's a self-care subscription box for busy women who need a little help focusing on their own self-care. And going along with that, I do, stress management workshops, personal development. I host retreats. I really have just focused, 100% of my time these days on helping women to really focus on themselves and make sure that they are the stars of their own life.
Ooh, I love that. The stars of their own life. And that is so important. And, I'm feeling a shift on the internet and kind of the circles that we're in being creative entrepreneurs. And I don't know if you feel that too, but I feel like there is starting to be this resurgence of interest in self-care where like maybe a few years ago, the idea of busyness, like wearing that badge of busyness, I'm so busy, I have so much to do. Everybody was like touting, I don't have any time. I just have to work. But slowly I'm starting to feel like self-care is becoming this thing. It's like a buzzword now and everybody wants to do it. So why were you interested in self-care? Where did the idea of the Bloom Beautifully box come from?
Yeah, so I basically became interested in self-care because I was one of those people who was burnt out on entrepreneurship, and I really did not have a good sense of how to take care of myself. I became a mother early. I was in college when I had my first child. I just graduated from college when I had my second child. And so, the very beginning of my 20s was filled with that transition to motherhood. Shortly thereafter, I got laid off from my nonprofit job and decided to become an entrepreneur. I was a full-time blogger for about 6 years. And during that time, I really subscribed to that whole, team no sleep. And I was working, pretty much 14-hour days. I was just really trying to do what I had to do to, make a dollar for my family and, support my kids. And, obviously I had my husband with me, but still like I had, I was the breadwinner. I made more than my husband, at that job. And so I was really trying to make up that income with this new blog and all of that. And it was maybe about 2-3 years into that pace of being an entrepreneur and, chasing sponsors for sponsored posts and, writing every day and sending it out on social media. I mean, that grind every day for about 2 years. I mean, I really, truly hit a wall. And I remember it was really bad. Like I remember one day I was on the freeway and a car kind of like swerved into my lane and it missed me. But I remember feeling disappointed that it didn't hit me because I could have gotten some rest, like in the hospital, like with a broken leg, right? Like that is ridiculous. Like that's how far gone I was because I was like, oh man, like I would have been forced to, rest and, people could have, I could have gotten a break from all of this. And it was like in that moment, I was like, okay, some things have to change because, having hospital fantasies is not good. Like that, I cannot operate my life and my business like this. I need to, kind of take control of where I am, and if I'm not going to, take care of myself and prioritize my sanity, what is all of this for? And so that's when I really began, doing, taking better care of myself. And when I say self care, I don't mean, I started getting manicures regularly and I started getting massages, although that can be part of it. But my first step was going to see a therapist. Um, and really, I went every other week at first, twice a month, and, eventually went to once a month and every 6 months, and kind of now I just check in as needed. But really doing a lot of intense self reflection to help me be, not only a great um, mother and a great wife and a great entrepreneur, but just be a great Tara just for myself. That was really my goal with all of this.
Oh, you just said so many things that I don't even know where to begin with my next question. But, you know, first of all, people laugh at me, but I am team need sleep. I
Hmm.
know that entrepreneur hustle is so big and people are like, oh, you can't sleep, you need to do this and work, work, work. And I'm like, I don't function well when I don't sleep. I'm actually I'm really cranky when I don't get enough sleep. So that life is not for me. But you said so many real things in there, and just the realities of what we do working online, running these businesses, having family, having kids. My story echoes yours really closely because I only have one child, but I was pregnant in college and was able to finish on time. But you're right, it just puts you in that grind mindset. And I think some of it is you know, you're that statistic, so you don't want to fail because everybody has something kind of snarky to say about a young mother. And then just kind of trying to find your place in your 20s, which is like a time of growth. And then adding on top of that, being an entrepreneur, which is, I mean, a whole nother grind and just craziness in itself. So, what you said really resonates with me on a personal level because I know what that feels like and I have definitely been there. So, why is it that you think women struggle with self care?
I think one of the biggest reasons that women struggle with it is because it really hasn't been taught to be a priority for us. I think a lot of women are socialized to be nurturing, not towards themselves necessarily, but towards other people to make sure that everyone else is taken care of, make sure that we spend our days and nights, really concerned about the welfare of others, which is a great thing. But I always tell people that like men are experts at self-care. Like they do not do things they don't want to do. They don't, some of them, yes, will like take one for the team, but it's not an everyday thing. I feel like men are good at keeping their cups full. They know like, hey, yeah, I'm wiped out from work. Like I'm not gonna, add extra stuff onto my plate. Whereas women, we try to be more flexible. We try to be more accommodating. I think that we are, that there's a premium put on, a woman who is nice, right? Like a woman who is selfless, and a woman who is a team player. There's a premium put on that, and so we want to be that woman because we think that that's what will get us ahead. We have to, make sure that everybody in our house is taken care of, especially for moms. The motherhood struggle is always, I always hear women like, oh, I can't even go to the bathroom by myself. I can't, I don't have any time for myself. And that's really kind of, what people expect, right? When they have babies, like they expect to, have to give 110% of themselves, and they expect to be exhausted at the end of the day. And it's that expectation that we will sacrifice until there's nothing left to sacrifice.
You know what? I have never once heard a man complain that they can't go to the bathroom
Mm-mm.
by themselves due to their children.
Yeah,
Never have I heard that.
that's not a thing.
It's
That's not a
not a
thing.
part of their reality. But it's a common complaint that I hear from mothers all the time. I mean, you even see little videos of like moms recording themselves from the bathroom with little fingers sticking under the doors or kids opening the doors and knocking on the doors. I've never heard a man complain about that. So, ah, that is such a fair point. Well, you mentioned earlier about you started your self care personally with going to therapy and things like that. What are a few things that you do now for your self care?
Yeah. So, like I said, yeah, I went to therapy. I still go occasionally. I've seen, a number of different therapists, just kind of depending on like where I am or what I need. I'm fortunate to go to this one practice that has maybe like 16 different therapists in it, and like they all specialize in something else. And, depending on where I am, I'll go see one of them. But, really in those, what I've learned from therapy that currently helps me with my self care is really how to vocalize what I need. And I think a lot of times that is difficult for women because we're not really focused on that. Our minds are so busy and we're so focused on external things. Do the kids have, are the kids' clothes washed? Do they have food for lunch? What's going to be for dinner? Have these bills been paid? We're so focused a lot of times on external things that we're not really focused on internal things. So I really try, every day. One of my friends asked me, she said, Tara, do you really, do you really do this self-care stuff every day? And I said, yeah, like I really honestly do. Every morning I wake up and it usually takes me about 5 or 10 minutes in bed just to kind of do a physical, mental, emotional kind of checklist for myself. And it's every morning I'm like, okay, how do I feel? Did I sleep okay? Is my neck hurting? Is there pain in my back? Um, do I feel rested? Did I get enough sleep? Do I need to take it easy today? If there was stress, on my mind, the day before, I try to take a minute to let that go or come up with a plan to, solve whatever problem that was on my head. So every morning I kind of do a check in with myself just to say, how are you doing? And be really honest about the answer, because sometimes we push those feelings to the side. We're feeling like we might be slipping into a depressive episode, or things haven't been going right for a while, but we just keep going because we feel like that's what strong women do. But really being honest with myself about, okay, I had a fight with my husband last night and I don't really feel like working today. Like just being honest with myself and being like, okay, I'm just gonna give myself some grace and maybe work on like easier things, and I'll handle the more difficult things the next day or something like that. But really trying to check in with myself every morning is one of my the best things that I do in terms of self-care. And then also I really place a high value on my friendships, because being able to connect with them, being able to share what I'm going through, and being able to get that support and feedback from them. That's also something that I was missing before. I know a lot of women say like, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time to hang out with my friends like I used to. And, we can go months without talking or months without seeing each other. And, that's a common thing that I have said myself. And it wasn't until really I tried to make my friendships more of a priority for myself, which isn't easy when when you're an adult with adult responsibilities. But once I started to make my friendships a priority, I'm telling you, like my life just elevated. It really did, because I had those people that I could go to, after I do that check in with myself. If I'm like, oh man, I, have had a really stressful week, I can go to my friends, and they will fill me up. They will support me, and the same goes, it goes both ways. If they come to me and I do my best to, affirm them and kind of help them walk through whatever pain and stress that they're currently in.
You made, again, so many good points. I love when I get to talk with people and just let them kind of be in their genius zone and talk about the thing that they're really experienced in, because you get so much really great information and a lot of things that I don't think come to the surface when you read blog posts or things of that nature. But everything that you said about friendships is so huge, especially as entrepreneurs, because that was something that I struggled with very early on, was just the loneliness of being a person who works out of their home behind their computer screen. Like there are times I can go an entire week and never leave the house unless I need to like do a mail drop or run to the grocery store, and I never see anybody besides my family. Um, that has changed now, because like you said, doing things to that fill up your cup. And for me, I have found, and this is so crazy because I swear I am not an athletic person. I've never really been into anything sports or just anything, and I'm lazy. I don't like to work out. But I'm so serious. It's bad. But one of the things that when I became a full-time entrepreneur, I really let my health kind of just go wherever it went, because again, you're so busy. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to run. I don't have time to ride my bike, and just the stress and being home, I put on so much weight. It may not be noticeable to other people because I'm so tall and they didn't see me in the beginning, but this year I decided, I'm going to prioritize myself and just kind of get things back in balance. And so I've started running and lifting weights. Completely changed my life. Like, and it's crazy how the things that we deny ourselves, like going to the gym or riding my bike, I don't want to do that because I have a podcast I need to record, or I have so much stuff to do today. But it's like I never regret a workout when I go and do it. I always come back feeling better and more energized and refreshed. So I've learned to take those feelings and make sure that I'm doing the things that make me happy. And oddly, working out is currently that thing. So
Yeah, I've struggled. That like work from home weight gain is very real. Particularly like my weight has fluctuated so much since, I started working for myself full time. And I will say that, for me, in terms of like physical self-care, I had to really let go of the idea that, I was supposed to live at the gym. Like I had to let go of, what physical fitness was supposed to look like for me, and really just do those things physically that I actually enjoyed. Like I hate the treadmill. I hate it. I hate it so. I hate it so. It's so boring. So I really decided. I'm not running yet, but I do my daily walks around the neighborhood. So I'll either, put on Pandora or a podcast or something, and I'll walk, 2 miles in the morning, just so I know, if I spend like the next hour or two, or three straight on the computer, I got in a little bit of, movement and exercise and fresh air to start off my day. Because I enjoy taking my walks and seeing, the leaves change, and I got a pretty peaceful neighborhood. So yeah, doing those things that you like to do, um, you know, breaking a little sweat. That's definitely a mood buster for sure.
yes, it definitely is. So if you're not moving your body in some way, you don't have to go to the gym, you don't have to run on the treadmill, but you do have to step away from the screen occasionally. It's important for your physical and mental health. But I want to switch gears a bit because we talked a lot about self care, which is great. But I want to get into some of the stuff that you do with your business. So I know you started out as a blogger and now you basically have transitioned and you have your self-care retreat, you have your workshops that you teach, and now you're selling a physical product as a part of a subscription box service. So how did you prepare to make that pivot from blogger to selling a physical product?
Mhm. It's funny because I feel like I didn't really prepare. Um, I I was a blogger for, oh goodness, about full-time blogger for about 6 years or so, when I made the transition into selling a physical product. And I had been in a lot of entrepreneur circles before that, a lot of groups online, like Lamar Tyler's Traffic Sales and Profit group. I had been, following a lot of people who had successful physical product lines, and so I had just been really kind of taking notes from what I had learned, from them, what I've seen them do, what they said, worked for them, what they said didn't quite work. And just kind of took all of that information, kind of kept it in my back pocket, to execute when it was time to. But really going into the subscription box field, there's a ton of specific subscription box information out there, how to price your box, how to get your first 25 subscribers, how to get, the best pricing for the items in your box, how to market. So there's a lot of specific information, you know, regarding the subscription box model, that I was just able to just read up on and just really just kind of, okay, this is how I'm going to put my stamp on it. This is how, I want my business to look. And I'm still learning. I launched it in January 2016. So I'm about a year and a half in. And I'm still learning with every box. I learn something new. It's like, okay, don't, I'll do this differently moving forward, or I'll go back to how I did it, last year. I'm always learning, always, willing to tweak things and try to put out the best product that I can.
Ooh, so you mentioned there's a lot of really specific information about the subscription box model. Any trusted go-to resources?
Yeah, well, I think the kind of like the Bible for subscription boxes right now is subscriptionschool.com. They have everything. I mean, everything from how to, where to get your boxes from, to, this is what you should say when you're pitching for product, to this is how you should price your. They have an actual pricing calculator where you say, okay, this is how much I want my box to be, and it tells you like, okay, this is how much product should be, this is how much you should spend on shipping, and it really tells you if you do all of these things right, this is your profit per box. I mean, it's subscription school is where I send everybody who asks me questions about how to launch. I'm like, just sit on this site for a day and then you have it. Then it's good. You're good to go. I can tell you no more than they can tell you.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'll definitely make sure I put that in the show notes so
Yeah.
people can go to that website because I love sharing resources with people because there's so much. Google, I tell people all the time, there is no better education than Google U and YouTube University. I'm
Hmm.
telling you, everything you want to know is there. So thank
Everything.
you for sharing that. Everything. People think that I'm lying when I say it, but I'm so serious. So with your subscription box, can you give us kind of like tell us how yours specifically works so you don't do a monthly subscription?
Yeah. So this year I started, we're still a bi-monthly box. So we ship every other month. You get a new box every other month. But I started shipping monthly. So I ship the same box twice. So I have the same box January, February, same box March, April, et cetera, et cetera. And I really just did it that way so that, the time frame from when you first sign up for a box, so it isn't so long. Because I didn't like people really signing up for a box, let's say in the end of January, and you wouldn't get a box until, March. So now, you sign up at the beginning of January, you get a box in February. It's just a way to kind of get the first box out to you faster, because with the box, I really didn't want it to just be a subscription box. Like I really wanted it to just be the box to be an entry point for a larger discussion about self-care. So once you sign up for a box, and whether it's a subscription, I also have boxes available for purchase, just a one-time purchase. You don't have to have a subscription. But once you purchase a box, then you get access to our private Facebook group. You get on the mailing list for the weekly affirmations, where I kind of give you homework every week. You get discounts to our annual retreat. So once you are in the sisterhood, there's a lot of other perks that come along with it. So I really wanted people to not just get a box and then take a bath with the bath bombs or whatever, but get a box, take a bath, and really begin to think about, okay, well, how I have this box now, I have this group of women now in my life who are rooting for me. How can I show up more fully for myself, and how can I move from being a supporting player to being the featured actor in my own life.
I have heard about your group. We have, Siobhan. Siobhan Sudbury of Be Free Project is a mutual friend of ours, and she always talks about, she's like, Tara's group is so lit. She's like, the ladies are in there, they're on fire about self-care, and they're sharing, and they're supporting each other, and everybody just trusts each other. It's so nice. And so, one, high five for being able to cultivate that community. But what do you feel like is your responsibility as kind of the cultivator of that community, and how do you instill that type of trust in your customer base?
Yeah, I think that, and I really, before I launched this box, I really thought about, well, what are my gifts, and what am I really good at? And I looked back, over my whole professional career, and building community that's what I do. Like I'm very good. I have no rhythm. I can't dance. I can't sing, but I can build communities. That is my talent. Um, and so, I really, my box attracts, a certain woman. It attracts a woman who is, thinking about, how do I do more for myself, and um, how do I, take care of myself, in the same way that I'm giving this energy to everyone else in my life. And so once they are a part of the group, I have only a few guidelines really. And it's really just to be respectful. If you can, make sure that you don't leave somebody hanging. If you see somebody has posted something and they haven't gotten a response or anything yet, if you are able to, leave a message for them and support, advice, or whatever you want to give them, please do. And we have had this group going on 2 years now, and I haven't had to block anyone. I haven't had to turn comments off on a post. I haven't had to delete any posts. It's just been a really strong, supportive space for women. Um, where we just show up for each other, and we just love on each other, and we celebrate our wins together. We just really try to help each other get to that next level where we're all just completely at ease, and happy with where we are.
And that's such a rare thing to find on Facebook, because I'm a part of tons of groups, and there's
Hmm.
always some kind of drama.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
so much drama
it
in
is.
Facebook groups, and it's
It
it's
is.
funny because these entrepreneurial circles are so small. I mean, we feel like we're in like a small fish in a big pond, but I mean, really, it's more like a fish tank than an actual pond, because we're all connected, because this space is kind of new. So, there'll be drama going on in a group, and it's not crazy if I get like a text message and somebody's like, "Did you see that post in so and so's group?"
Hmm.
And I'm just like, "No, I did not go in that group today.
Yes.
There's too much going on in there." So, you being able to cultivate a community that's supportive and everybody's nice and respectful, that is really kind of rare. And that does speak to your gift as somebody who can build communities. So kudos for that. So, what do you think with the self care box and your community, all the things that you've done? What do you feel have been your keys to success?
Ooh. Um, I think my biggest key to success has really just been um my willingness, I think, to like lean on my gifts. Like I know that I'm an empath, I am great at building community. I I really, I tell this story often. When I was younger, like one of my favorite games to play was Homeless Woman. And so, my sister would like be in the hallway and I would like invite her into my room and she was like a homeless person. And so like I would feed her and I would like give her clothes and I would like make her soup and I would like put on her favorite, what she wanted to watch. Like I would just I just likes to take care of people like that. Um that was what I just love to do. I just love to take care of people. So I just really have just leaned on that, and being myself, because I know that there are a lot of other people, a lot of other Black women who are doing amazing things in this wellness arena. And they are doing it their own way as well. And I had to not compare myself to them or not try to mimic what they're doing, but put the product out in the world that I wanted to put out. And, have the focus be on my authentic self and not what I thought, people wanted to see out of a self-care coach, but just really to um, focus on what my gifts and what my strengths were and not kind of chase trends or, try to be somebody that I'm not.
Now I want to flip that question on its head. What have been some of your challenges?
Oh, I think one of my biggest challenges for sure is having to really operate with the mindset of, this isn't, it's easier. I don't know if I say if it's easier, but when I was a full-time blogger, people would read my blog and they would feel connected to me. And, I had gotten comfortable, where I was. I didn't, people knew my blog and they knew me and they knew what I stood for. And since I transitioned into a new arena of actually having to sell things and keep customers happy and anticipate, their needs, I think one of my biggest struggles and challenges was to just own the fact that I am doing this now, and to because even, maybe 6 months into having this company, like I still thought of myself as a blogger who owned a subscription box versus, even though I wasn't even blogging anymore. But I still, I had to shed that the comfort of I know what I'm doing as a blogger. I know, how to pitch and have, a partnership with a brand. I know how to go on a press trip. I know how to do all of these things. And so to go into this new world where it's like, okay, I have to set up like an abandoned cart email, like funnel, or I have to, how long should coupon codes be good for? And, really just had to accept that I'm going to make mistakes because I have never done this before. And instead of letting those mistakes, keep me in bed, like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But to really be like, okay, I know what not to do next time, and just really bounce back a little faster from setbacks because, if you're not failing, I think you're not learning. um, and so I had to understand with every mistake, with every oops, as opportunity. So um, just really trying to get my mindset around that, around like, hey, you don't know what you're doing, but one day the only way to know what you're doing is to, mess up a few times. And then you're like, okay, I think I got it now.
Yes, one of my favorite quotes goes something to the effect of like ever fail, ever try, fail better is basically how it ends. I'm gonna have to find it now. Now I want to put it in the show notes, but it's that whole idea of like you just keep on failing because each time you get better. So you're going to fail better than you did last time, and changing that perception that failure is always negative because it's not. It's there's a learning lesson. If you don't fail, then you don't learn, and that's most important. So we're kind of wrapping things up, but I want to know you've been doing the self care box a little bit over a year. You've blogged. You have your self care retreat that sold out, and some of my friends who got tickets before it sold out, they're raving about how much they can't wait to go there because it's going to be New Orleans. But what do you feel has been the most important lesson that you've learned through all of this that you're doing?
I think the most important lesson that I've learned is that I am capable. And I really had to learn to give myself more credit. I think it's hard sometimes, especially for anybody in any field, really, but particularly entrepreneurs. As I tell my husband every day, like I'm making all of this stuff up as I go along. Like I made up this job, I made up this retreat, like I'm making up all this stuff. And some of it's magic, some of it isn't. And I'm trying to understand that um, sometimes I can make magic, right? Like sometimes I might stumble into it, but it's still magic, nonetheless. And I think that trying to get over self doubt and, kind of questioning your intuition and questioning your gut reaction to things, learning to move past that and really, understand that I know some things and I've done some things, and that experience travels with me. And I think that we all have to remember that Oprah didn't start out with a media empire. She started out, anchoring like local news, local television, and grew it to, the empire that she has today. Beyonce started out singing at her mother's hair salon, and now she has worldwide stadium tours. And so, all of that experience, it's all cumulative, and it will all help you get to where you want to be. But you really have to make sure that you believe in yourself and you believe in that experience that you've had.
Exactly. That is so true. And the piece about Beyonce, I always tell people when I was in high school, I saw Beyonce, or actually, I saw Destiny's Child singing at the Florida Mall, which I grew up in Orlando, Florida. So, I mean, our city is a huge tourist city. So the Florida Mall is like well, at the time, it was like the biggest mall in Orlando. But still, I got an autograph and everything. I saw them singing on a little collapsible stage at the Florida Mall. Nobody is ever going to see Beyonce singing at the Florida Mall again, I guarantee you.
Yeah. Mm-mm. No, not
So,
likely.
so we all have to start on the ground floor. The way that I like to kind of wrap up the show, I have two final questions, but for you, there's kind of a bonus question in one of the questions. So, the Pimp Your Brilliance Action Challenge, which is I ask everybody to give 3 tips that you would give to somebody who is interested in doing something similar. So, for you, 3 tips that you would give to somebody who is interested in starting a subscription box service. What would they be?
I would really say if you're interested in launching a subscription box, I would say one is to really look at um, the competition, because the subscription box market, it's becoming, a little more saturated, as more people are exposed to it. And, it's a really great business model. Recurring revenue is, fantastic business model. And so really think about, what you're doing that makes you different from the next person. Because, I launched my box and I'm sure, I came across a few boxes that were self-care focused. They're all slightly different from mine. But I really decided, to kind of put my mark on it by, having the box not just be, the end product, but kind of be a means to an end and an entry point into a broader world. And so, that's my first suggestion, is to really research the market and see, where you're actually going to fit in and how you're going to make that box stand out. Because otherwise, you'll be spinning your wheels, wondering why nobody's buying your box when there's, 4 other boxes that are identical, might be cheaper, and have a stronger track record. So just make sure that you are scoping out the marketplace first. And I'll also say, think about your plans to scale it, because I think that, you want to think about what comes next because you're going to have, a nice, if you do it right with a subscription box, you'll have a nice base of people who are um, loyal, to your brand and your product. And so what comes next? Do you want to expand to other boxes? Do you want to do what does your, maybe not 5-year plan, but maybe 2-year plan? What does that look like for you? And then my last question or last tip would probably be, I feel like I would not be the self-care coach that I am if I didn't say, make sure that you are structuring your business in such a way that it does not consume you. I think that, with a subscription box, particularly if you choose a monthly model, those first few months are going to be hectic and you are going to, you're going to make a few mistakes, but that's part of the process. But really, make sure that you structure your business in a way that either you have people help you in exchange, for free boxes or however you can swing it financially, but to structure it in a way that you're not putting yourself on a fast path to burnout. Those would be my 3 tips.
And that leads into the second part of the question I wanted to ask you. So, the other part of the Pimp Your Brilliance Action Challenge, what would you suggest for someone who needs to start prioritizing their self care? A couple of tips.
Yeah. Um, if you need to start prioritizing your self care, I think the first thing that I would do, um, I think our emotions clue us into things that we're not even consciously aware of. So, for example, a lot of women are angry. They have a lot of anger in their day-to-day lives. And I think that anger is an awesome emotion because anger is a signal that something is unfair, something's out of whack, something's out of balance in our lives. So if you find, even in your home that you're upset with your husband or your boyfriend or your partner, you're upset, the kids are driving you crazy all the time, even when they're just doing kid-like things. Um, what does that emotion mean? What does that anger really mean? And that kind of goes back to what I said about, kind of doing the daily check-ins with yourself and seeing how you're doing and why do you feel angry and why are you feeling overwhelmed or why are you feeling exhausted? And a lot of times, all of those things are mental things that you can kind of begin to work out inside yourself and then take that information and then form some really good, healthy boundaries around them. So, for example, with entrepreneurs, it's very easy to not have any boundaries in the beginning. It's very easy to not have any boundaries. So, um, you know, one thing that I would say is you have to have a time to shut things off, shut things down. I have a alarm on my phone. It goes off every night at 9:30. I'm not usually still working at 9:30, but it's like it's my, get ready to go to bed alarm. So I can go, take my shower. I can, do some meditation or whatever it is that I'm going to do to kind of get my mind ready, kind of signal to myself, signal to my body we're about to go to sleep now, so please cooperate. I want to get a good night's sleep. So, making sure that you kind of look at and kind of assess where you are in your life, tapping into your emotions. Are you angry? Are you tired? Are you overwhelmed, frustrated? And then using that information to create boundaries. So I'm not going to work, tell yourself I'm not going to work past 9 p.m. or I'm not going to work on Saturdays or I'm going to set up, email responses and things like that so that I don't have to keep wasting or spending too much time, answering the same questions over and over again. So I think, coming up with where you need boundaries and then, creating boundaries. I think those are the 2 first steps that people can use to really kind of get their self-care under control.
Awesome. Are you a reader at all? Do you like to read?
I love to read. I love to read.
So, are there any books that you're reading currently or any books that you've recently read that have blown your mind?
Yeah. Um, One book that I read, and I feel like I read it, like an essay from it, and I just bought it on Amazon. But I'm reading Alice Walker's In Search of My Mother's Gardens. I think that's the title. Um, and it was written, um, oh my goodness, probably in the 70s, I think. And I've just been really, it was been published, I looked it up. It was published in the early 80s. So before I was even born. But it was just a really fantastic look, particularly for Black women, a fantastic look at creativity and even, self care, self love, and self definition that I recommend every Black woman reads it if they haven't already.
Awesome. So I'm going to add that to my list and to the show notes. I love asking people about what they're reading because you get such diverse recommendations and perspectives. All right. So that was my last question. If listeners want to get in contact with you or find out more about what you do, where can they find you online?
Yeah, they can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Where Women Bloom, and you can find me on Instagram at The Self Care Box.
And your website address?
The website is therenaissancesuite.com.
Awesome. Well, this was great. I loved all the recommendations you gave, and you gave such great information. So thank you for agreeing to do this interview because self-care is important, and I'm glad that we had a chance to talk and give some great suggestions for people to get started.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. All right, guys. Well, if you have more questions, definitely check out Tara's website. If you want to know some of the resources we talked about, then definitely hit up the website and check out the show notes for Tara's episode. And that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening. Learn more about this show and get access to show notes by visiting keepchasingthestars.com. While you're there, make sure you subscribe for updates. I'll be back next week, and in the meantime, go out there and pimp your brilliance.